Good Zamba to all of you. We are still with the research design under data collection. I just want to tell you that the reason why we are prolonging in the Unit 3 is that the contents of Unit 3 is basically clipped together with the content of Unit 6. That's on research design. So we are trying to cover 2 units at a time. That's why it's getting a bit longer. And as well as I'm trying to get things more in a systematic manner so that the kind of understanding that you get from all these lectures are sequential. They are in ordered manner so that you get the views, the research design in a very systematic manner. So the main thing that I want to tell you is that the flow that we have in module descriptor is not that systematic, not that sequential. So it's really going to confuse you if I just go with the flow of module descriptor. So it's taking me some time to just order all the module descriptor parts and to rethink on the rearrangements of the contents that is on the module descriptor. So that's why I'm just rearranging everything else and making all my slides in flow. So this unit, specifically unit number 3, is going to take some time because it is with the combination of research design unit. So this will be the last presentation from the research design, and one of the components of research design that's on data analysis will not be taught in this module because one whole module on statistic is available, and I really hope that you are enjoying that module and you're learning a lot of data analysis tools as well as data analysis methods. So I'm not going to talk on data analysis for research design in this module. So except for that, rest of the things will be covered. Today I'm going to look at data collection, and that's the last part of the research design and data collection unit. Yes, again, the data collection slides or video presentations are again being divided into 4 video presentations. Please try to get hold of all the 4 video presentations to understand clearly what data collection looks like in research. So whenever we are talking about data collection, we are basically talking about procedures and instruments that are involved in collecting our data. Procedures from henceforth, I'm going to mention it as methods. So whenever we are talking about the data collection, we are talking about the methods involved in the data collection and the instrument that we need to use in order to collect data from using those methods. So 2 things, methods and instruments. So we'll be looking at basically methods involved in collecting primary data in qualitative research and in quantitative research. Again, we are going to look at methods involved in collecting through secondary data or secondary sources. I'll be making it clear in following slides. Just to get back to where are we and to not to let you get confused, we just turn with the sampling and sample size. Today we are going to look at the data collection, specifically going to look at methods and the instruments that we need to in data collection. Now, whenever we are talking about the method of data collection, we are specifying the method of data collection in 2 kinds of research. One is in quantitative research and one is in qualitative research. There are few different methods that are involved in collection of data. We do not have an exhaustive list. We just have few, and these few methods are not just restricted to just quantitative separately and qualitative separately. Those methods which work for quantitative also works for qualitative, and those methods which works for qualitative also works for quantitative. That means the same method can be applied for both kind of research. So the same method that we apply for both kind of research just depends on how we are using that method. For example, if you're using method X, usually that method acts should not be very flexible if we are to collect through that method for quantitative research. But in case of qualitative research, that method can be very flexible. So just two things: flexible and inflexible, structured and unstructured. So all the structured, all the inflexible or rigid are in general, a rule of thumb says that it's with the quantitative research. And if you just look at the qualitative research, we do not have the rigidness in this flexibility. We do not have standardized, um, structured. We do not have a very sequential pattern. We do not have very depth, and we do not have very free kind of environment to do. We don't have very free kind of environment to do research in terms of quantitative. But in case of qualitative, there's a flexibility, there's no structure, there's no sequential pattern, and we can have as much as depth as we need, and we can have a very free nature. So in general, again, I'm going to tell you, if you want to do a quantitative research, then the quantitative research do not have flexibility. It doesn't allow us to move away from our structure. So our methods should have a very structured methods. Our question patterns should be very sequential in manner, and we do not have very flexibility in terms of depth. So we're not going to go very deep in case of quantitative research generally. And if you're looking at the freeness of the researcher, then we don't have that much free for the researchers to collect different kinds of data for quantitative as compared to the qualitative. So qualitative is more towards flexible. You can have your structure up and down, you can have your sequence up and down, you can have as much as depth as possible, and the researchers have the freeness to do research. So basically, whether you want to do quantitative research methods, basically is being guided by these different questions. So the first one is, what philosophical epistemology is underpinning your approach to research inquiry? For example, I want to start my research with interview. So all of us know what is interview right now. So basic interview. So interview is my research approach, let's say. And if I do a very structured interview, then that's the scope of quantitative. But if I do not do a very structured, but if I just do a very free, flexible interview, then that's the scope of qualitative. So that's kind of like the approach that you're trying to use, the general approach that you're trying to use really determines whether it is qualitative and quantitative. How was the information collected? Was it through structured or unstructured format? So again, I was just talking about an interview. If it was just structured, then it is the field of quantitative, and if it is not structured, then it's the field of qualitative. And where the questions or issues discussed during data collection predetermined, if it is predetermined, then that's the scope of quantitative. But if it is not predetermined, but if it's developed during data collection, the questions are coming up as and when you're asking the respondent, or as and when you are in the field, the questions are coming in your mind, and you just tend to note down the answers, then that's the scope of qualitative data collection. How was the information you gathered recorded? So the way that you record the information again really determines whether it's qualitative or quantitative. For example, if you just record the interaction between you and the respondent, or interaction between yourself and the natural field that you have in a descriptive manner. For example, you just observe something else and you just write in descriptive manner or a narrative manner, then that's basically scope of qualitative, because you do not have any categories or scales or any numerical values that you can quantify. Just writing or describing something else or narrating something else. So that's a scope of qualitative. But in case of quantitative, you may like to use scale. For example, I've just seen, for example, in the field I have seen around 3 or 4 animals. So I just write 3 or 4 animals. But in case of qualitative, you just go to field and you just see that the animals were quite tense. The animals were rushing very fast to the water hole, or the animals were rushing very fast to their habitat, or a jungle cat was chasing its predator, its prey, very fast. And if you're just describing that event or phenomenon or that problem or issue, then that's what qualitative is all about. But if you are saying that, oh, 3 predators were chasing around 2 prey, so that's scale. Or around like the group of cattle in that type of forest have an average weight of 70 kilogram, and the average weight of the cattle in another type of forest is around 95 kilograms. So you're just categorizing the data, and you see there are different kinds of ways to record the data. For example, with descriptive, with narration, with categorical, with scales and all, which I'll be dealing with just in a while. So we'll be just seeing in a few slides different ways to record our data. Again, how was the information analyzed? This is again one important question, because the way you analyze the data again really shows whether the research is qualitative or quantitative. So if you just analyze through a very descriptive manner, then it's basically qualitative. But if you're using your numbers, your categories, and you're trying to analyze those numbers and categories, then it's basically quantitative in nature. And these are a few questions that will generally make you understand whether your research is quantitative or qualitative in nature. So I'll just read through this one. Whatever I've just talked in the first slide is basically being reflected here. You can just read it yourself, but let's just read together. Blues are all qualitative, and green ones are all quantitative. So observation is recorded in a narrative or a descriptive format, so that's qualitative. Or however, if it is recorded in categorical form or on a scale, that's qualitative. So an unstructured interview recorded in descriptive or narrative form, that's qualitative. But however, if it is recorded in categories, which is structured again, is basically quantitative. Descriptive responses obtained in reply to open-ended questions, that's qualitative. But if responses are numerical, for example, some descriptive responses you can take back to your station, and you can analyze, and you can try to pick some numbers, or you can try to categorize those descriptive answers from the respondents, then that's when it can also be considered as quantitative. I am saying again, the respondents gave you in descriptive or narrative answers, but later you can categorize your answers based on the descriptions that are being provided by the respondents. You can take out a few numericals from the respondents' responses, And these numericals or these categories can be analyzed, and that can also be sometimes quantitative. If you develop categories and codify categorization as a part of analysis, the descriptive responses to an open-ended question, it becomes quantitative, like just like I said. And data generated by focus groups, if you involve lots of people, lots of respondents or in a group, and oral histories, meaning the histories, the societal views, perspective, historical or traditional researches, narratives, group interviews are always qualitative in nature. We'll be looking at this one also in third or fourth video presentation. So that's with the analogy. You can read by yourself and just try to know what exactly or how exactly are we segregating quantitative and qualitative information. So this is basically an answer to the first slide. Few questions before we move on. There are again two major approaches to information gathering. So we have primary information, and one we have got secondary information. Primary information or primary data is when you are the first person to collect the data. You are the first person to go and find out something else on that topic, or you send someone else on behalf of you to collect the data or do research on behalf of you. Still, that's part of your research, and that can also be called as primary data. For example, diversity of benthos in Tebrongshu. So no one has done any studies on benthos on Tebrongshu. So if you are just looking at the collection of data, looking at the benthos of Tebrongshu, then that's primary data. However, we have got secondary data. Not every time that you are doing research is very new or very it's done for the first time. Lots of people must have done on your studies, and you can always contact those people's research articles, and you can refer those people's papers or those people's reports, and that's when you can call that paper or reports as secondary data. However, again, government and semi-government or non-governmental organizations and other really well-established organizations, they tend to let's say National Center for Hydrology and Meteorology, they try to publish lots of rainfall, temperature, and related data monthly, daily basis, and even they publish a book in a year. That's when we have got ANCOF 1, ANCOF 2, and all coming up yearly. So their data can also be used by us, and they can also be incorporated in our studies. That's when those data can be called as secondary data. For example, census data is one thing that we really need every time in our research to generate the number of respondents from the sample size and all. So again, those census data and all can also be considered as the secondary data. So secondary data and primary data, I really hope you know, but I'm just refreshing you all. Primary data is the one, not necessarily you have to go personally yourself, but you can also send someone else on behalf of you to collect data for you. That can also be a primary data collection. So two ways: primary data and secondary data. So this is the last slide from this presentation. So generally, methods of data collection, we have lots and lots of diverse means of classifying methods of data collection. But for ease and for this class, we'll be looking at this method of classification. So we have two different sources of data. One is primary source, and the other one is secondary source. So from both sources, we can collect both quantitative and qualitative information. And primary, of course, through primary sources, we can collect lots of qualitative and quantitative data. But however, also from secondary sources, we can collect both quantitative and qualitative data. It's just that how we analyze, how we extract our information. If you're extracting our information through secondary sources like government publications, if you're extracting a categorical information, then that's quantitative research. If you're extracting a descriptive information, then that's qualitative information. But however, if you just look at primary sources, there are again very diverse different methods to look at. But for our ease, again, we're just going to look at three major types of data collection methods. So first one is Qualis Observation, where you are basically observing the respondent, observing the phenomenon, observing the issue, observing the problem, observing the study site, observing the natural environment that you're working with, observing the animal, basically observing your participant or some other thing. So in this research, we have got two kinds of observation. We have got participant observation. We have got non-participant observation. We'll be looking at that in other video slides. Then we have got interview as other method of data collection, where we have got structured interview and unstructured interview. Then we have got, lastly, we have got questionnaire and questionnaire that's been divided into mailed questionnaire, and collective questionnaire. Then we have got collective administration, questionnaire, and all. The details we'll be looking at in second or third video presentation. But however, just know that in summary, methods of data collection has broadly been classified into primary and secondary, and from both the sources we can generate qualitative and quantitative data. If you just look at primary sources, we have got three major methods of data collection: observation, interview, and questionnaire. And interview and questionnaire method of data collection looks very similar, and they are actually indeed very similar, and there are a few distinctions which we are going to interestingly look at in following video slides. Thank you so much.